He'll
Sorry, I'm having trouble with my mind.
can't help you there, Tom.
Now, I'll tell you something. It's going to be worse next year. Okay, we've all got lots to do. So we'll call the meeting to order. I would like on the agenda, without objection, to move the approval of the last meeting minutes and to explain and ask for a vote on the select board letter, and then we'll go into the draft plan. So I had sent out a copy of the minutes from November the 5th. John sent me some good corrections. This was the meeting when Owen and Mark were here talking about the harbor monitoring for fish. Are there any further comments or corrections to the draft minutes?
I think you got them.
If none, I'd like a minute. I need a motion and a second.
Move that we approve the minutes as written.
And corrected, second.
All in favor? Everyone just raise their hand or wave at me or something. Okay, thank you very much. For nothing. The letter to the Wellfleet Board of Selectmen. It's an interesting issue. And this is about the Herring River project. What's important, what's behind this is that the town of Wellfleet does not have a Chapter 91 license for the harbor. I think some language like that. So as an alternative to this, the town could have improved a harbor management plan. And they approved the Wellfleet Harbor Management Plan, the one before this one, back in 2006. And I went to the town archives and I found out that it was approved in June 2006. And I have the exact date. I think it was June 5th. And it's in the minutes. So it's official that the town of Wellfleet approved the harbor management plan, which harbor management plan called for the restoration of the Herring River. All of the rest of this is, I think, sort of boilerplate stuff. So it's what lies in the first paragraph is important, and that's the reason for it. So we sent this letter to the Board of Selectmen so that they can. It's reminding them of the town's authority. So first of all, I should ask, do we understand the reason, and are there any changes in the draft? And if not, I will need a motion and a second on this letter.
So John, remind us again the reason that this came up, or?
Because the town doesn't have a Chapter 91 license. Chapter 91 is a state license for various harbor activities. But the alternative to this is to have an approved harbor management plan.
Okay.
Which was approved back in 2006. And that's actually the time that the Herring River Restoration Project got started. That's when the Herring River Technical Committee was organized.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually on that. Gordon Peabody was the chairman. And there's a really good report that they have, thick-ish, that explains the possibilities for restoration. So that's all hidden in the first paragraph here. Yeah. As I say, all the rest of this is it's useful, but nothing new. Any further questions or comments?
Just so I know what we're talking about, John, is this the one that, I'm confused as to which letter you're talking about. Is this the one that you sent for an addition to this discussion? Or is this a previous letter?
This is the previous letter. This is called, the thing I sent as a recent addition were some ideas I had for actual recommendations to go into our report.
All right, what's the title of the one you sent that we're talking about now?
Well, it's addressed to the Wellfleet Selectmen.
Looks like November 13th email at 11:05.
All right.
It's one of those attachments.
Well, it was a Microsoft Word attachment though, right? So I usually
Yeah.
save those, so I'm trying to figure out what I would have called it.
It's, well, if you left it what John says, it's NRAB_draft.docs.
Say that again?
It,
NRE
it just says NRAB, all caps, underscore, capital D for draft.docx.
All right.
So we're really just reminding them that they have authorization to do this.
Yeah, it's part of the permitting process.
Yeah,
And it's a public record, as I said. I went to the archives and there's a report of the select board minutes from back in 2006, and there it is. It says harbor plan was approved. So that makes it official.
Does everyone, I'm trying to locate that November 13th email.
Let me,
All right. I'm just seeing Tom and Tom, can you make the meeting?
Tom, go.
right.
Another way to do it is go to the Town of Wellfleet website,
Okay,
and
you can
then
forward it if you want.
over to calendar. If you click on Natural Resource Advisory Board, that will list all of the attachments for this meeting.
oh, okay.
This is on the front page. You don't have to leave the front page of the,
Right, okay. Okay.
and it's one of those on there.
All right, good enough.
And
Thank you.
I've forgotten what I called it. I hesitate to go look myself because I'm afraid I might lose everything.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I'm okay with it, yeah.
I can
all
forward
right,
it. if you
I
can't find
see it. I got
I
it.
have it.
Okay. Take your time because this is important.
All right, so this is the one called draft, no, it's draft minutes, draft docs.
Yeah,
And it should be a letter that's addressed to the select board.
Yep. Yeah, you would think so. All right. Draft outline, also harbor plan. Nope. What is this? All right, I got something crazy going on here. Oh, wow. Yeah. All right, which email was it in? From the third, you said?
13th.
Yeah. All right, I got problems. I'm sorry.
I'm gonna forward it to you guys.
And I just, because now all of a sudden my cursor is like making this trail. I'll try it again.
Tom, did you find it or you want me to send it?
Why don't you send it to me? I have this whole list on the NRAB agenda, including draft doc, NRAB draft, Curly document, harbor plan, shellfish
Here.
climate.
Laura, just a second. I've got the original email that I got with the draft, so I'm gonna send it to Tom
Okay,
and John.
okay.
All right, I see 11/13, NRAB, here we go, on the 13th.
There's a new email should be coming into you.
All right, NRAB draft minutes, NRAB draft doc,
I got all that too.
untitled attachment.
I just forwarded you an email that I got from Carol Ridley, and attached to that is the draft letter.
Okay, this is the one that starts Wellfleet Select Board, and it's a formal letter. It says on behalf of, is that right?
Yeah, you got it.
All right, so I'm looking at it now. Oh yeah, I remember reading this. It's with all the bullet points, yeah. Somebody checked it for typos?
I didn't see any, but
I didn't particularly because I know the person who wrote it. She's pretty careful.
Hmm.
But I'll have another look at it, and I have to put it on letterhead and all that stuff.
Okay, yeah.
Was this protected for some reason? Like,
I don't think so.
I see some stuff, some funny stuff, like at the end. All right, let me see. Maybe it's just the way I'm looking at it, but I see a little. Okay, a change maybe. 1 September. I see a bunch of blocks that say 1 SEP on them at the
I have
end of.
no,
Like, for instance, at the end of the first bullet point where it says roughly 1,000 acres of salt marsh, ... At the end of that sentence, will be restored. Then there is a.
well, I see what you're seeing, John, is it's somehow when I forwarded this to you, it came out as the version that Carol was working on when she drafted the letter. So what you're seeing is her corrections.
I see. Well, so somebody needs to get in there and edit that stuff out.
Absolutely. I'm glad you pointed that out to me.
All right, because other than that, I mean, everything reads properly from what I can see. I'm not a speed reader, but that's the only comment I have to make about it, because it sounded good when I read it.
Okay. Tom, you on board?
Yeah,
One other comment I would have is you should put
I
a
don't
date
have
on it.
Oh, yeah, it's got to be dated and fancied up. Absolutely.
okay, yeah, no, I think it looks good.
Okay. So I need a motion and a second.
I'll motion that we approve this letter sent to the select board once it's corrected with a date and has those edits removed.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Thank you.
Yes.
Hmm.
So what I would like to do the rest of the meeting is to go through the harbor plan again and do it chapter by chapter and talk a little bit about the recommendations. And the thing I sent out just a day or so ago was a list of the recommendations. So I'll talk about what those are as we go through the discussion. But if you can find that draft recommendations, that might be helpful.
I got that one.
Good. Chapter 1, the key thing about chapter 1 is it lists several ongoing projects such as the Herring River, Mayo Creek, some work of the Conservation Commission. A key recommendation is that we should continue with those projects and get them finished. The wastewater committee.
So that's the major question I have about this, John, is everything that you have in parentheses there when it says town committee and staff and it says wastewater energy committee, what's going to go there? What is that? I don't understand what the formatting is here.
You want me to
Well-
try and share it?
I'm sorry?
You want me to try
No,
and
I
share the
think, John,
document?
My idea is that we have this, let me try to explain, Laura, then we have this chapter 1. And the chapter that Tom put together on dredging ends up with some recommendations. And I'm asking the question, well, shouldn't we do the same thing for every chapter? So that at the end of this chapter, we would put these two or some alternate or no recommendations. This
I
report
was
is supposed
offering to
be
put
an
it up on
action
the
report.
screen. I was
Hmm?
offering to try and put it up on the screen so we could all look at it.
You're talking
Oh, that
about the
would be
document?
terrific.
I'll give you permission, Laura. Hang on.
Oh, okay.
Well, you should be able to actually. Do you have the share screen button at the bottom?
I do. Just give me a minute. Gotta find it. I'll be right back with it. Hang on.
You just pulling up the document, is that right?
That's what I was gonna do, yeah.
Okay, well, I think we all have the document. John, do you have
Okay,
it?
I just figured if we were all looking at it, it was a good thing.
Yeah, okay. Because I've decided just to look at, I'm watching you right now, but I'm not looking at anybody
Okay.
else that's not talking.
Okay, then don't.
So
worry.
again, I just don't, first of all, what is where is this going somewhere? Is this going to the select board?
This is, the harbor plan goes to the select board and we would, looking ahead, I would like to present it to them they have a meeting in early December, about the 8th.
Okay,
I'd like to present it to them as a draft. It can't be finalized until they approve it.
all right, well, so
And-
let's take it then right from the very top. Chapter 1, emphasize and complete key ongoing projects as listed.
Those
Where
are part
is-
of chapter 1.
Say that again? As listed where?
Chapter 1 of our draft plan starts off with a list of projects that
Okay,
are
all
ongoing,
right.
we'd like to see finished.
So this is
Herring
like,
River-
so this is like a cover letter for our draft harbor management plan, is that right?
It could be done that way. We could put these recommendations in a cover letter, or we could put them in the body of the report. Probably the body of the report is better because that's what eventually would be
Part of record.
filed as a town document.
I'm still trying to come to grips with what this is we're trying to approve here or discuss.
What do we recommend? What are the actual?
It's the punch
specific
list.
actions?
It's our punch list for this meeting for us.
It's a
Our
punch
punch list for the harbor management plan.
I get it. Okay.
If you go back to the 2006 report, there's all kinds of recommendations, things that we thought needed to be done, or they did. And we're just,
Well, but Tom, with two differences, which I think are important. I was on the committee that did the 2006 report, and looking back at it, I thought it had way too many recommendations.
I remember
well, yeah,
that.
that's what I mean. Basically, I mean, trying to explain what we're doing here.
So I
It's
wanted
similar
something
to
that
what
was,
we did, not only with more, narrowed and specific recommendations.
right.
When someone reads this report, they'll say, well, they've done this, and what are they recommending? And are these things that are feasible that can be done, right?
The other thing, Tom, is that this report starts off with a list of 5 or 6 ongoing projects which haven't been completed. And they're ongoing and they're good projects, and I suppose our key recommendation is get those finished.
Mhm.
And people are working hard at it, and that's not intended to be critical. But there's no use our making a recommendations to a new recommendation to restore the Herring River. That's being done, or
Right.
there's a wastewater planning committee. We don't have to say what we're asking the select board do is to continue to support those projects, which they're doing. But those are big projects, every one of them. So it's a few words, but a lot of activity and importance.
I like it, John. I thought it was much tighter than the last version of the harbor management plan.
You know, that was the lesson I took away from the first one. That being said, Laura, in that harbor management plan, both the 2006 and also the 1995 one, there's an awful lot of good background information.
Oh, yeah, I agree. It's just, you got to make it bite size for people.
Yeah, and I guess one of my thoughts was we didn't need to repeat that background information. It's also in Seth Tooler's report. So for chapter 1, do we basically like the 2 recommendations? Let me explain about the Energy Committee. The Energy Committee has done some great work on reducing the greenhouse gas emissions from the town of Wellfleet. They're the committee, for example, that put the solar panels up at the dump, or caused them to be put up. That's great, and I applaud them. My problem is that all of the great work in terms of climate change, all of the great work that they have done would be wiped out if we do a little more coal mining in Wisconsin or Wyoming. They have coal mines. So what we have to do is to take their good work and ask them to broadcast it and get other towns and the state to take further advantage of it. The Audubon Society has also done some great work along the same lines, and I've made the same comments to them. So that's what behind that recommendation. It may be a little presumptuous of us to tell a committee that's already done a lot of great work to do some more, but I think it's worth making the effort.
So I'm still trying to wrap my head around the formatting of this letter and what its intent is. If it's supposed to be a sort of a cover letter that goes along with our harbor management plan, it seems to me there's a lot of redundancy in here, and I'm just looking to try to figure out, okay, let's just take chapter 1. Okay, I understand, emphasize Now, as listed, now it says in parentheses, select board and appropriate town committees and staff. Is that the way that's intended to read permanently, or is that going to be changed to something else? Either links or what was your intention of,
My intention was you take chapter 1
yeah,
and these two recommendations would go at the end. Now, in a sense, the first one about the ongoing project is something that's just repeating what's already in the text of chapter 1.
That's the ownership, right? Is in the parentheses.
say
Yeah.
that again, Laura?
I was just saying it's the ownership that's in the parentheses.
Ongoing projects as listed.
They're listed at the start of chapter 1.
Okay,
So basically, when you get to the end of each chapter, there will be these recommendations. And the parentheses are those who are
Responsible.
responsible to initiate the recommendations.
okay, well then why, instead of just putting them in parentheses and leaving them there unexplained, why don't you write emphasizing complete key ongoing projects as listed?
Well, they're listed in chapter 1. They're listed
All
at
right,
the
I
start of
understand
chapter 1.
that, but what I'm saying, as listed with action by select board and appropriate town committees and staff.
Okay,
Something like that, with action required by. And then same thing, every place, instead of just having parentheses, I just don't, same thing to follow at the end of every time it's to the energy committee.
Well-
Operation house gases, that's on here.
Laura's already doing that, so we've accepted your recommendation.
Oh, there you go. All right, well, that's fine. I can't see it because I'm just looking at the draft that I'm looking at
You
here.
know, well, it's up on
Yeah,
the,
the wording of it, that's fine. I understand. And actually, let me get back in then to, because I think that the concepts in here are fine, which does flow with the harbor management plan. It's just that every time that it doesn't read well.
I'm always happy to accept changes. We'll have, before the Board of Selectmen meeting, we're gonna have another shot at this as a final draft.
Okay, so
So-
like, just for instance, investigate ways to protect marshes, including use of dredge spoils with consultation by the Natural Resources Advisory Board, Dredging Task Force.
Right,
So you write it out, and that way people can understand what you were trying to say instead of just,
okay,
I guess I understand the concept now that every time there's a parentheses, those are the overseeing entities that are going to be required to do something about it.
that's right. So if we go to the recommendations under chapter 2, which is the climate change, which is mostly concerns with salt marshes. There are a number of good ways to monitor current and past growth rates of the marshes. One way turns out to use a lead isotope, which has a half-life of about 50 years. So this is the carbon-13 process, but using lead, and it has a much shorter half-life, so you can look at more recent effects. That's one way to monitor the growth rates of the marshes in Wellfleet. What I'm thinking here is I'm trying to find out which of the marshes are at most risk because their growth rate is too slow. And then we talk about marsh restoration, which is the big recommendation. And that the third recommendation is about protecting upland slopes. There was a really good presentation at the first Wellfleet Harbor Conference online forum a couple of weeks ago, and that
Is that Steve Smith's?
was Steve Smith, and
Yeah, that was,
one of the things that came out of that is actually, if we protect the upland slopes, which are adjacent to the marshes, most of the marshes in Wellfleet are going to have a pretty good survival chance. Not going to be 100%. The one marsh we have in Wellfleet that doesn't fit that responsibility, fit that criteria, is some of the marshes on Lieutenant Island, because they're not backed by anything. There is no upland slope. So I think supporting that CONSCAM proposal is very important. I understand from Hillary, it's going to come before the town meeting next April. And that I hope we can all be there to support it. The recommendation after that is using dredge spoils. That's sort of a recommendation that we may want to happen twice, once in the dredging chapter. The one about studying the marshes further south, I emailed back and forth with Steve Smith about this, and he's pretty lukewarm. So I think I'm going to drop this, and just, I recommend dropping it. It's up to you guys. But I think that's a bit far-fetched. It makes sense for the shellfishing. We've had the same issue with shellfishing. We need a broader genetic DNA, a wider DNA balance in our shellfish, but I don't think it's going to work for marshes. It may eventually work, but it's a bit far-fetched.
We can still do it.
And I'm not looking to add more recommendations. I prefer to get them to remove them. Then under dredging, the first one is the key one.
Well, it's pretty much the same as investigate ways to protect marshes, including dredge spoils in the last, in chapter 2. And then in this one, I guess it's maybe a little more specific. And maybe, Steve Smith in his talk did mention this and as something that I forget exactly how he said it, but he's saying that it would be
It's being worked on.
Yeah.
I think there's no science reason not to do it. It's an engineering problem, is how to do it without just blopping stuff on top of the marsh.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
there's
CCMS.
there's all
Excuse
kinds
me?
of there's documentation in several places now where they have done this, and maybe trying to look at some of those studies in Louisiana and along the Atlantic coast and see what it's mostly the Army Corps of Engineers has done this, and maybe somehow working up a project that either the Seashore or the Center for Coastal Studies or somebody could, put together and maybe worth at least doing some sort of preliminary look at it.
Yeah.
So
Part of the dredging recommendation is to follow developments of TLD technology, and I think we should do that.
Can I ask you, John? I see that thin layer placement modeling is referred to, but then you call it development of TLD. Is that thin layer deposits? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
thin
So-
layer
I'll
deposition.
clarify that.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, either spell it out or, next to,
I say, well, under thin layer deposit, put parentheses TLD, and that explains what it is. Thank you,
yeah.
Laura.
There you go.
It's easier to go to acronyms quickly rather than say the
Well,
whole
I
thing.
understand, but by using thin layer placement, modeling will be required. Oh yeah, right. Thin layer placement Follow development of thin layer deposit technology. So
Well,
thin la-
it's thin layer deposition, TLD, not TLP. So
right,
it-
thin layer deposition, but
Yeah.
he
Yeah,
earlier.
we don't
he
need the
referred-
word placement, Laura.
Right, placement can be, yeah,
All right, so it's called thin layer deposition?
right.
Yeah,
No kidding, all
Just
right,
Google it.
all right.
I'll send you a website. The Army Corps has a very extensive website with all kinds of information if you haven't seen it.
All right, because anytime I see TLD, I think of a Shimano fishing reel, just for your information. A TLD 25 was
That a
my
good
favorite
one?
offshore reel, so there you go.
Okay.
High quality.
okay. Sorry, I've got a telephone up here that's ringing.
Good
Okay,
to go out on TV.
Another robocall.
probably. Laura, can you move on down? Let's see what
Yep.
else we had in mind here.
So we're still in dredging.
Two other recommendations that I'd like us to consider. I want to talk specifically about removing the old railroad bridge, because the first study about this by Graham Geis at the Center for Coastal Studies back in the early 90s ended with a recommendation that we look into that, and it's never been done. And the second recommendation, I'm not sure about. When Mike Flanagan was was harbor master, he had the idea that the town could buy a small dredge and do some maintenance dredging on its own without having to wait for the Army Corps of Engineers or the state to provide permits and money. He thought it'd be cheaper and quicker. And I think I'm thinking back to what Mike said and trying to support that recommendation. And it might be part of actually doing thin layer deposition, because if we had our own dredge, we could do our own TLD. You may or may not think that that's either a good recommendation or appropriate for this report. And I've tried to explain what was on my mind.
I think it makes sense to look into it. I guess, some of the questions are, is it something that you really need some technical training that's beyond the town doing it on their own? But otherwise, it certainly makes sense if you don't have to go through
Well, that's why
we've been through.
Well, and
the action, it's a select board action because there are lots of questions. I
Well, the
have
other
no idea
issue-
what the cost would be. We'd have to learn how to operate it. We'd have to have a plan of what to do with the dredge spoils, which we're recommending, but
Well, the other issue would be possibly sharing it with other towns that, that are going to need dredging as well. And whether,
well, Truro does its own dredging.
mm,
They dredge the harbor, and that's mostly fairly sandy dredge materials, and they put it on the bay side in front of Cornhill. So
They own one or do they rent one?
I don't know how they do it, Laura. I've never investigated that. I just know it's, a town does it and it's feasible. That's all that.
they don't just have a contractor come in then like we're
They may
doing?
well do. That's still,
Yeah.
I mean, look, that would
Yeah,
avoid a capital cost. That might be the cheapest way.
Mm.
And maybe for some of our dredging, we'd end up just having our own town dredge and taking it out to the center of Wellfleet Bay from time to time, dumping stuff. I think that would, I don't like that idea, but that may be what survives.
Is DMF gonna be okay with that?
Permitting permitting is an issue. I mean, there were, as you remember, to do the current dredging, there was a big dispute about diamondback terrapins, because in the wintertime,
Yeah.
diamondback terrapins bury down into the mud under a harbor and essentially hibernate. And I saw Bob Prescott a week or so ago, and he said that there already been some terrapin kills from the current dredging.
Hmm.
So there was a balance there.
We found a beat up one on Mayo Beach and brought it to Audubon and they rescued it, so.
Good for you. Terrific.
Well, you're starting to get some of the cold stun turtles coming in now too, even though.
Yep.
it doesn't
Yeah,
look
and this
cold.
weather we just had overnight, we'll get a bunch more.
Mm.
Laura, let's look under chapter 4.
Okay,
Well,
Are we going to keep
John,
that? Are we going to keep that last recommendation?
I would say yes.
I think
But I
so
also
too.
I'll make a comment under chapter 3 dredging is that if you're gonna, unless it's being referred to elsewhere in this document, CCS and APCC should be spelled out.
Right.
One of the things I was thinking of doing in the first chapter, and I haven't, it'll be in the final draft, is to call attention to the fact that it's not only the town of Wellfleet boards and committees who are supporting work at the harbor. You have the Friends of Herring River, you have the Wellfleet Conservation Trust, you have APCC, you have Center for Coastal Studies, you have state committees, as for example, the Division of Marine Fisheries. So lots of people are helping us. We have the Wellfleet Harbor seminars, which I think have been very successful in helping to educate people about issues in the harbor. So there's a small army of people that we can rely on. Let's look at the shellfishing. SAB is Shellfish Advisory Board.
Yep.
You might want to spell that out.
Yeah.
Mm.
So the one is this genetic diversity issue, because this addresses the issue of that Nancy Civetta calls phenology. And the second one is specific, is important to everybody, but specifically the shellfishermen are concerned about both sea level rise and increased rainfall create more road runoff and create more septic runoff, and both of those would affect water quality in the harbor. And of course, the shellfishermen depend on good water. And the third recommendation just says it ain't gonna be all bad. And then chapter 5 just says do the Curly report. John, I had a note to myself. Do you know Brad Chase?
Yes, well, I've met him once, I believe, yeah.
As I sent Owen's proposal to Joanne Muramoto at APCC and asked, where did she think we could get money? And she also mentioned the MET, the Massachusetts Environmental Trust, but said it might be useful to talk to Brad Chase and see what he thought about the project and whether he could suggest sources of funding. And Joanne said she would be glad to organize a conference call with him.
Yeah, Brad's, he's easy to communicate with. I just, the last time I remember talking, it was years ago, and he said, the state's not going to have any money for you on that, so you're kind of on your own.
Yep.
And who is Brad Chase?
Brad Chase is or was, he used to be with Mass DMF, and I'm just trying to think of, I don't know what his position is anymore. I know that his
I think
name,
he's head of the Southeast DMF,
Okay,
the Southeast Massachusetts,
Southeast Massachusetts.
out of New Bedford or something. I think you might be right.
Yeah.
All right.
For example, Tom, if I am right, all of the shellfish regulations in the town would have to go through his office.
okay.
I know they go through DMF, and I know Brad Chase is associated with DMF. I'm just a little vague on his current responsibility. I think, John, based on what you say, I'll pick up on Joanne's offer to.
Yeah, no, that's fine. And I'm trying to think of where I've seen his name on, like, printed on, was he on the Curly report? Was his name attached to that, or a relative of his or something, or?
Oh, wait a minute. That would be great. Here's the Curly report.
Is he like on the front page or the second page?
Oh,
or
the
something?
front page is John Curly, Robert Lawton, David Whitaker, and John Hickey.
All right. Yeah, Hickey was the name then. All right. So I was wrong. All right. He knows about it for sure. So the only comment I have on Chapter 5 Curly Report's a colloquial name for that. So I think maybe below that you should spell it out a little bit, like say complete and report results of a renewed monitoring of Wellfleet Harbor modeled after the 1972 Mass DMF report titled A Study of the Marine Resources of Wellfleet Harbor. And then the
What time,
last
John?
sentence.
No, just a second, Laura. I have a plan B here.
Okay.
I think, John, that what I have done or will do in the actual text of chapter 5 is just to talk about the study of marine resources of Wellfleet Harbor, commonly called the Curly Report because of its lead author.
Okay.
And
So
that,
you're gonna leave that as it is, kind of like with an idea of getting people interested in reading Chapter 5. Is that right?
I hope so.
All right. Well, the only other comment I've got at the end where it says with an appropriate action plans, that doesn't make sense. So it should be with appropriate action plans. Just get rid of the and. Or-
Okay.
Or with an appropriate action plan, singular. So you choose.
I think one plan is enough.
Okay, with an appropriate action plan. Yeah, I agree.
Laura, you're very good at this. It's almost, well, you remind me of some of the teachers I had in elementary school. I don't mean that pejoratively.
I'll take it as a compliment. You went
It is.
far.
I was trying to scratch out something that teachers say, well, not this way, that way. And it's good. Good to be reminded.
It's great. Right up there.
Let me think. We have to be at the select board on December the 8th. Well, we don't have to. That's their last meeting in 2020. The meeting, there's a meeting after that that has a different agenda. I think it's about financial planning, which is important. And we could in principle meet in January, but in January, knock on wood, Linda and I are in Tucson. We could still meet from Tucson. I've done that before. So that's why I've sort of have December 8th in mind. And so I will try to schedule another meeting for the week before December the 8th. Our drop dead day is the Friday before December the 8th. December the 8th is a Tuesday, I think. So you work back and find out what that Friday is, because that's when the packet for the Board of Selectmen has to be completed. And I'd like to get that, I'd like to get there as early as possible so that they have a chance to read it and think about it. So I'll schedule something based on those on those timelines. There's no public here for comment. Is any of the members of the committee want further comment?
John, maybe we don't need to talk about this now, but in the body of the report on dredging, we gave reference to the to Agnes's report on black mayonnaise, and I know it's included in there, but I wondered if we should somehow add in something like the NRAB sponsored this study, funded by taxpayer or a town meeting grant in 2000, whatever it was, 17, I think it was, 18 maybe.
16, it was 2016.
Really? That long?
Well, actually, we just,
Anyway, I'll write, maybe I could just write something up.
yeah, that's great. And I'll also be sure that, I mean, that's another excellent report. I want to be sure that that's on our website, so I'll make sure that that's there. May already be, I can't remember.
Well, and that you give a clear reference to it in this report,
I just worked with Jane Tesson and got it finally paid off. We'd had a long outstanding invoice from the Center for Coastal Studies, and we never had the final report until September. So, and I think we still have $1,000 left in that if we want to do something with it. A little over $1,000. But the town meeting authorized $25,000 to look at dredging alternatives, and her report has been critical. Anything else? I appreciate you do that, Tom. Just
Okay.
send it on out.
Laura?
Enjoy your
thank you.
Thanksgivings.
Laura, I would say thank you for doing the work on that document. If you want to circulate that around, that'd be great.
I already emailed it to you.
Thank you.
Wow.
Good Thanksgivings. Stay healthy.
You too, you too.
Right.
And we'll see each other again in a couple of weeks.